Hello and welcome to Stoic Tube. Today we're going to talk about how to trick your brain into liking hard things, drawing inspiration from Stoic philosophy. If you enjoy this video, consider subscribing to Stoic Tube for more insights on living a better life through Stoicism. You probably don't have any problem playing video games or browsing social media on your phone. In fact, you could likely sit in front of a screen doing both for 2 hours or even longer without losing concentration. But what about half an hour of studying? That might feel too hard. Or working on your side business for another hour? Not very appealing. Even though you know that studying, exercising, building a business, or doing something equally productive will bring you more benefits in the long run, you still prefer watching TV, playing video games, or scrolling through social media. It's easy to understand why. One activity is easy and doesn't require much effort, while the other is difficult and requires you to apply yourself. But some people seem to have no problem studying, exercising, or working on their side projects regularly. So why are some people more motivated to tackle difficult things? Is there a way to make doing difficult things easy? To answer this question, we need to look at a brain neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is often considered the pleasure molecule, but that's not quite accurate. Dopamine is what makes us desire things, and it's that desire that gives us the motivation to get up and do stuff. Let's dive into some experiments neuroscientists did on rats to understand the power of dopamine. Researchers implanted electrodes in the brains of rats. Whenever the rat pulled a lever, the researchers stimulated the rat's reward system in the brain. The result? The rats developed a craving so strong they kept pulling the lever over and over for hours, refusing to eat or sleep until they dropped from exhaustion. Then, the process was reversed. Researchers blocked the release of dopamine in the brain's reward center. The result? The rats became so lethargic that even getting up to drink water wasn't worth the effort. They wouldn't eat, mate, or do anything at all unless food was placed directly in their mouths. This showed that it's not just thirst or hunger that motivates us to get food or water. Dopamine plays a key role. While these rat experiments are extreme, you can see similar effects in humans in our daily lives. Your brain develops priorities based on how much dopamine it's expecting to get. If an activity releases too little dopamine, you won't have much motivation to do it. But if an activity releases a lot of dopamine, you'll be motivated to repeat it over and over. Any activity where you anticipate a potential reward releases dopamine. For example, before you eat comfort food, your brain releases dopamine because you anticipate that the food will make you feel good, even if it actually makes you feel worse. Your brain doesn't care if the high dopamine activity is damaging to you. It just wants more of it. A stereotypical example is a drug addict. They know that what they're doing isn't good for them, but all they want is more of the drug. Drugs like cocaine and heroin release unnatural amounts of dopamine, making you crave them even more. But nearly everything releases some amount of dopamine, even drinking water when you're thirsty. The highest dopamine release happens when you get a reward randomly. One example is playing a slot machine in a casino. Even if you've been losing money, you expect to get a bigger reward eventually. And in today's digital society, we are flooding our brains with high amounts of dopamine daily, even if we don't realize it. Scrolling through social media, playing video games, watching internet pornography, and other activities flood our brains with dopamine because we anticipate some sort of reward with each behavior. That's why we're constantly checking our phones, expecting to see a text message or notification. We're becoming like those rats pulling the lever, trying to get a new dopamine hit. You might think, so what? It's not harming me. Won't. But you'd be wrong. Our bodies have a biological system called homeostasis, which keeps internal physical and chemical conditions balanced. Whenever an imbalance occurs, our body adapts to it. For example, when it's cold outside, our body temperature falls and we start shivering to generate heat and warm up. When it's hot outside, our body temperature rises and we start sweating to lose some of that heat. Our body aims to maintain a temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius or 98 degrees Fahrenheit, no matter what. Homeostasis also manifests through tolerance. Someone who rarely drinks alcohol will get drunk quickly, while someone who drinks regularly will need more alcohol to feel its effects because their body has developed a tolerance. It takes more alcohol to make them drunk because they become less sensitive to its effects. The same goes for dopamine. Your body tries to maintain homeostasis, so it downregulates your dopamine receptors. Your brain gets used to high levels of dopamine, and those levels become your new normal, leading to dopamine tolerance. This is a problem because things that don't give you as much dopamine don't interest you anymore, making it harder to motivate yourself to do them. They feel boring and less fun compared to high dopamine activities. That's why people prefer playing video games or browsing the internet over studying or working on their business. Video games make us feel good because they release a lot of dopamine, while things like working hard or reading release it in lower amounts. This is one reason why drug addicts struggle to adjust to normal life after quitting. Their dopamine tolerance is so high that normal life can't match it, making them like those rats with no motivation to do anything without enough dopamine release. It's not just drug addicts. People addicted to video games, social media, or internet pornography experience the same thing. Once their dopamine tolerance gets too high, they can't enjoy low dopamine behaviors. So, what can be done to prevent this? A dopamine detox. Dopamine detox involves setting aside a day to avoid all highly stimulating activities. You're going to stop flooding your brain with high amounts of dopamine and let your dopamine receptors recover. A disclaimer: if you're suffering from drug addiction, seek professional help to avoid extreme withdrawal symptoms. For a whole day, try to have as little fun as possible. No internet, phone, or computer, no music, masturbation, or junk food. Remove all sources of external pleasure for the day and embrace boredom. You are, however, allowed to go for a walk, meditate, reflect on your life and goals, and write down any ideas you get on a physical piece of paper. This might seem intense, but if you want radical results, you need to take radical action. Why would this even work? Think of it this way. If you've been eating every meal at the best restaurant in town, those fancy meals become your new normal. If someone offers you plain rice, you'd refuse because it doesn't taste as good as your usual meal. But if you're stranded on a deserted island and starving, that plain rice suddenly seems great. The dopamine detox starves you of pleasure, making less satisfying activities more desirable. If you don't want to take such extreme action, perform a smaller dopamine detox. Pick one day a week to refrain from one high dopamine behavior completely, whether it's checking your phone, playing video games, binge watching TV, eating junk food, or watching internet pornography. Avoid that activity for the entire day. You'll feel bored, but that's the point. Let your dopamine receptors recover from high dopamine flooding your brain. Boredom will push you to do other things that you normally put off because they don't release as much dopamine. Avoiding high dopamine behavior occasionally is good, but ideally, you should avoid those behaviors as much as possible. Instead, connect more dopamine to things that will benefit you in the long run. Use high dopamine activities as a reward for completing difficult work. This is what I do. I track difficult, low dopamine work like cleaning my apartment, practicing the piano, reading books, exercising, and creating videos. After getting a certain amount of work done, I reward myself with high dopamine activities at the end of the day. The key is to indulge in high dopamine behavior only after completing the difficult tasks. For every hour of low dopamine work, I reward myself with 15 minutes of high dopamine activity at the end of the day. You can adjust these ratios to your liking. If you're addicted to something damaging to your health, don't treat that behavior as a reward. Find a different reward that's not as harmful, but still worth the effort. Drawing from Stoic philosophy, the concept of voluntary discomfort, as practiced by Stoics like Epictetus and Seneca, can be incredibly useful here. Voluntary discomfort involves intentionally exposing oneself to uncomfortable situations to build resilience and appreciate the comforts of everyday life. Seneca once said, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' By doing this, you not only reduce your dependency on high dopamine activities, but also develop a greater appreciation for simpler pleasures." Stoics also emphasize the importance of focusing on what you can control and accepting what you cannot. This mindset can help in managing your dopamine levels and motivation. Instead of lamenting the difficulty of tasks, Stoicism encourages us to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. Marcus Aurelius, a renowned Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." By adopting this perspective, you can transform your view of hard tasks from burdens to opportunities for self-improvement. Another important Stoic principle is the dichotomy of control, which teaches us to focus on our actions and attitudes rather than external outcomes. Applying this to dopamine detox, you can control how much you engage in high dopamine activities, but you can't control the immediate pleasure they bring. By focusing on your actions and making conscious choices to reduce high dopamine behaviors, you gain greater control over your motivation and long-term happiness. By understanding and manipulating your brain's dopamine levels, you can make hard tasks seem easier and more enjoyable. Combining modern neuroscience with ancient Stoic wisdom can lead to a balanced, fulfilling life. Remember, the journey to mastering your dopamine is not a sprint, but a marathon. Be patient with yourself and celebrate small victories along the way. So, in summary, here's what you can do. 1. Dopamine detox. Periodically remove high dopamine activities from your life to reset your brain's dopamine levels. 2. Voluntary discomfort. Practice Stoic techniques of voluntary discomfort to build resilience and appreciation for simple pleasures. 3. Reward system. Use high dopamine activities as rewards for completing difficult tasks, not as an escape from them. 4. Focus on control. Apply the Stoic principle of focusing on what you can control, particularly your actions and attitudes toward hard tasks. 5. Embrace challenges. View hard tasks as opportunities for growth, transforming obstacles into pathways for self-improvement. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video helps bringing out the best in you. Remember the Stoic wisdom of Epictetus. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself? Start your dopamine detox today and take the first step towards a more balanced and fulfilling life.